Hello, and today we're going to look at the phosphate cycle. So to start with, some of the places where phosphates are used for biological functions include things like DNA, ATP, which is part of the respiration process, DNA, I've already said, so that's not much help, RNA, cell membranes, and proteins. So it's used in loads of different biological molecules. And it's also components in bones. So your bones are made out of calcium phosphate. So that's another place where it's used. So let's look at some of the, or let's have a look at the natural phosphorus cycle. So we've got, to start with, phosphates in rocks. Let's put it down here, phosphates in rocks. And this is weathered into regolith, which is just small bits of broken down rocks. And this can be then eroded into marine sediments. And then these can be uplifted or sort of like tectonic plate movements and stuff like that, and that can result in phosphate being sort of presented back to the surface of rocks. So this is uplift. Okay. The other way that it can be weathered is into the soil, or aquatic habitats, where then it can be absorbed by plants up through their roots. And then it can get eaten and end up in animals. And these can all pass it into dead organic matter through death. And let's put death in then. Okay. And from dead organic matter, it can be broken down from these complex organic molecules and released back into solutes in the soil by decomposition. Alternatively, that dead organic matter can be deposited as sediments, ultimately in the marine environment because it washes down things like rivers and stuff like that. And ends up back into the lithosphere. So let's just change those back to red so they all match. Okay, so you can see that this is a much simpler cycle, natural cycle for phosphates. And one of the reasons for this is it has low solubility. So if it's soluble, it's something like H2 PO4. So that's phosphate. Or HPO4. So they're both phosphates. So this low solubility, even the soluble forms are relatively have low solubility, and there's no gaseous reservoir. So you can see that a lot of it is, the largest store is the lithosphere, where it has a long residence time. So this slows down its cycling. Unlike things like nitrogen and carbon, which have a gaseous reservoir in the atmosphere, so they can move around much easier. And because of this, it's often a significant limiting factor, one of the main limiting factors for plant growth. So let's have a look at some of the main processes then. So the first one is absorption by roots. So roots of plants extend into the soil and they give them a large surface areas. However, these are not very efficient. So plant roots are not much good at extracting phosphates from soil because phosphates bind to soil very easily. Things like clay particles. So this means it's difficult for plants to access. So what they take advantage of is a symbiotic relationship with mycorrhizal fungi in the soil. So the fungi connects at a cellular level with the roots and provide an enormously larger surface area for the uptake of things like water, but also absorbing phosphates. So this is a symbiotic mycorrhizal fungi. And this has the benefit of increasing surface area. So it can access more of the soil, and the hyphae, so like the threads, the sort of almost, they're not roots, but they sort of to us look like roots, are extending through all the soil particles, and they help absorb and phosphate, sorry. So they absorb the phosphates and exchange them for glucose from plant. So they both benefit. That's what symbiotic means. The fungi gets glucose from the plant, and the plant gets phosphates from this network of fungal hyphae. Okay. Next one then, decomposition. So breakdown of proteins. Um, from dead organic matter. Releases phosphates. By soil microbes and fungi. And this means it's more accessible to plants. Next one then is sedimentation. So when organisms die, so here we have like a lake or a shallow sea, and we've got algae that are photosynthesizing in the surface waters. So the photic zone of our lake. And they are going to be absorbing phosphates that are dissolved into the water and incorporating them into proteins in their bodies. When they die, they sink and form sediments on the ocean floor. And quite often, because the ocean floor is cold and dark and low in oxygen, there will be limited decomposition. So those phosphates are going to be locked up in the sediment. So this is sedimentation. Okay, and this means that things like the surface of oceans are going to be phosphorus limited because it's being continuously removed. And the last one then is mountain building. So these ocean sediments, as we have tectonic plate activities, will move the sediments and potentially result in them being uplifted and forming things like mountains, where the action of weathering will dissolve or leach or erode phosphate containing particles, making them available for plant